Donald Trump's recent warning of potential future strikes in Nigeria if the killing of Christians persists represents a significant, and potentially destabilizing, shift in U.S. foreign policy towards the country. It departs from traditional diplomatic norms and raises serious questions about the criteria for intervention, the implications for Nigerian sovereignty, and the broader impact on regional stability. This analysis will delve into the statement, its context, historical background, and the potential ramifications. The immediate trigger for Trump's comment was a question regarding the Christmas Day strikes, presumably referring to airstrikes or military actions that occurred in Nigeria on or around that date. While the specific details of these strikes require further clarification, the context strongly suggests they were related to ongoing conflicts involving religious or ethnic dimensions. Trump's linking of these strikes to a broader campaign dependent on the protection of Christians fundamentally alters the framing of U.S. involvement in Nigeria. Nigeria, a nation of over 200 million people, is roughly split between a predominantly Muslim north and a largely Christian south. This demographic division, overlaid with ethnic and economic disparities, has fueled persistent tensions and violent conflicts for decades. Historically, these conflicts have been driven by competition for resources, land disputes, political marginalization, and the rise of extremist groups like Boko Haram. Boko Haram, in particular, has targeted both Christians and Muslims in its efforts to establish an Islamic State, making any simplified narrative of Christian victimhood problematic. The U.S. has historically engaged with Nigeria on multiple fronts, including counterterrorism efforts, economic development programs, and humanitarian aid. This engagement has typically been framed within the context of promoting stability, good governance, and economic growth, with a focus on addressing the root causes of conflict rather than taking sides in religious or ethnic disputes. Previous administrations have been cautious about overtly aligning U.S. policy with any particular religious group, recognizing the potential for exacerbating existing tensions and undermining U.S. credibility as a neutral mediator. Trump's statement breaks with this tradition. By explicitly linking potential future military action to the protection of Christians, he risks alienating Nigeria's Muslim population and fueling accusations of religious bias. This could undermine U.S. efforts to counter extremism, as it provides extremist groups with propaganda material to recruit and radicalize individuals. Furthermore, it sets a dangerous precedent for intervention in other countries based on religious criteria, potentially opening the door to selective application of human rights principles and exacerbating international conflicts. The legal and ethical implications of Trump's warning are also significant. International law enshrines the principle of state sovereignty, which limits the right of external powers to intervene in the internal affairs of other countries. While the responsibility to protect, R2P, doctrine allows for intervention in cases of genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity, its application requires a clear and demonstrable failure of the host government to protect its own population, and must be authorized by the UN Security Council. Trump's statement does not appear to meet these criteria, raising concerns about potential violations of international law. Moreover, defining Christian and determining who is being killed in a way that justifies military intervention is fraught with difficulties. Many of the conflicts in Nigeria are complex and multifaceted, with religious identities often intertwined with ethnic and economic grievances. Attempting to disentangle these factors and attribute specific acts of violence solely to religious persecution is likely to be inaccurate and counterproductive. It also ignores the suffering of other victims of violence in Nigeria, including Muslims, and could lead to a selective and biased application of U.S. policy. The potential consequences of Trump's warning are far-reaching. It could embolden militant groups to escalate attacks, hoping to provoke a U.S. intervention that would further their own agendas. It could also undermine the Nigerian government's efforts to address the underlying causes of conflict and promote national unity. Furthermore, it could damage U.S. relations with other African nations, who may see the statement as an example of neo-colonialism and interference in their internal affairs. In conclusion, Trump's warning of potential strikes in Nigeria based on the killing of Christians represents a dangerous and ill-conceived departure from established U.S. foreign policy. It risks undermining Nigerian sovereignty, exacerbating religious tensions, and fueling regional instability. It is imperative that the U.S. government clarify its policy towards Nigeria and reaffirm its commitment to engaging with the country in a way that promotes peace, stability, and respect for all its citizens, regardless of their religious beliefs. A more nuanced and diplomatic approach, focused on addressing the root causes of conflict and supporting Nigerian efforts to build a more inclusive and equitable society, is essential for ensuring long-term stability and prosperity in the region.